So I want to start this video with a question. When it's your turn to apologize, when you've done something wrong, can you do it? Or do you say things like, I'm sorry you feel that way, but, or this is why I did it, or you point out what they did wrong that made you, quote unquote, do what you did. Anybody? Okay, well, this episode is for you if you're nodding your head. But before we get started, if you're new to my channel, please introduce yourself in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell right there so you can get notified when we roll out new videos every Tuesday to up-level the joy in your life and give you more mental wellness skills. So, if you don't know me, my name is Terri Cole. I'm a licensed psychotherapist, and I am the author of this book. Oh, that should be up there. Hold on. Where's that book? There it is. You want to see the book? I'm going to put it up right now. There you go. Boundary Boss. And you can buy that at boundarybossbook.com. So I love that you guys are so participatory and all of your questions and comments that come in. And almost every episode, I highlight someone's comment. So Amber, under the rupture and repair episode that I did, says, I love this video. My boyfriend and I haven't had any ruptures yet, so I'm going to make this a discussion, and hopefully this can become a way of doing preventative maintenance before ruptures get too ruptured. It sounds like a great communication practice. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, you are welcome, Amber. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. So, this entire video is going to be about the anatomy of an authentic apology. That's what we're talking about, because there really is an art to apologizing. And I think that the easiest way to set it up is for me, let's first talk about what is not an authentic apology. And then I'm going to give you tools and tips and things that you can do that will equal an authentic apology. So, I'm sorry, but that is not a real apology. So, I'm sorry you feel or you think, I'm sorry, but I was tired. I'm sorry, but you were annoying me. No, that is not a real apology. Another super common way that people indirectly express remorse or sadness or fear about an action that they've taken is to be nicer to the person. So I had a friend years ago who had been married for almost 15 years at that point, and she said she knows when her partner is sorry, even though they never verbally apologize, but they act nicer than usual. So indirect communication in that way is not that helpful. Right now, let's talk about being humans, because as human beings, to a degree, we all do this. I find in my own marriage, if I am bitchy to my husband, if I'm short, if I'm snappy, if I'm judgmental, I will always, before or after I've apologized, because I will, of course, apologize, I'm still find myself wanting to reach out to him a little more than usual, just to be like, we're okay, right? Is everything okay? Are you okay? The funny thing with Vic, though, my husband of 20, we've been together 24 years, is that he's the biggest codependent on the planet. I love him, but he is. And so when I apologize, he's like, he makes up excuses for me. He's like, you were exhausting, or you were PMSing, or whatever, right? And I'm like, hi, just let me apologize. Stop making excuses for my crappy behavior, please. But he's like, wait, did I miss something? I just did this 2 days ago. I just texted him, sorry, I was crabby before. And he's like, wait, did I miss something? Were you crabby? I was like, okay, maybe not. Maybe. And then I really think about what happens in those interactions is that because I'm good at regulating my own emotions at this point in my life, and 35 years of therapy later, my own therapy, or whatever it is, I feel guilty for how I feel if I'm really frustrated, even if I only act a little frustrated. But inside, the guilt that I think the way that I'm approaching him is based on how frustrated I actually felt but didn't act out. So anyway, That was a convoluted way of saying it's pretty human to act out the apology. But if that's the only thing you're doing and you're not putting words on it, it's not very effective. And it's not really boundary boss like at all. Other ways of not apologizing is, as I said before, I'm sorry you think or feel. I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings. Because if you're apologizing, you know you hurt someone's feelings. You're not, it's really not an if situation. Another thing not to do is don't go through the motions of giving a perfunctory apology if there's actually no remorse there. I find that personally more enraging or makes me more mad than someone just not doing it at all. Right? Do me a favor. Don't. Because you're doing it because you want to be able to check the box that you did it, but you didn't. And another thing is not being vague. You know, when I was first with Vic years ago, if he knew I was upset about something, and it was almost 25 years ago. I wasn't obviously as good of a communicator then that I am 2.5 decades later. But if he would say, I'm sorry, or I'm sorry you're upset, I would, not to be nuts, but I would say, no, but can you be specific? What are you specifically sorry for? Not to torture him. I wanted him to understand me. The need to be understood is so great that I didn't want him just apologizing so it would be over per se. I wanted him to understand what I was upset about. So I think with the vague apology, because Vic just doesn't like conflict, that wasn't satisfying to me because, again, this deep need to be understood, So, what other things do we want to say to not do? All right, I think we hit them, but let's move into what you can do and language that you can use. So now we already know we're not going to, no buts, no if, no justifying your behavior. And I always tell this to parents that if you are reconciling past hurts with your children, if they're teenagers, if they're whatever it is, if you want to own something that you did that you regret that you did, there literally can be no justification. Years ago, my mother sent me a note. My parents got divorced. My mom had an affair with her boss. I mean, this is, 1,000 years ago. But anyway, when I was so I was 13 at that time or 12 at that time. And when I was living in the city on my own on the Upper West Side, I got just a card. And I'm really close with my mother and always was very close with my mother. Still am. Thank God she's still here. And I got a card in the mail. And it just said, I'm sorry that some of the choices I made when you were younger created pain for you. I'm working on forgiving myself. I've asked for God's forgiveness, and I hope one day you can forgive me. Now, some people would say you shouldn't put the burden on the other person about the forgiveness thing, but I felt incredibly seen and acknowledged and didn't even know that I needed that. I just thought it was so nice, and I really felt acknowledged because, of course, that was a hard time in my young life, and yeah. Anyway, so that's something. Because you could also say, and she could have said, I'm sorry I made these choices that hurt you, but I was basically raising 4 kids all by myself. And there's a million things we can say to justify our bullshit behavior. But it's then that centers the apology back on us as to the why. And what we really want to do in a real apology is acknowledge the damage or hurt we caused the other person, right? That is the point of an apology. It's not just to get the person off your back. It's not just to not have conflict. The point is to acknowledge your actions and take full responsibility for them. So we know to have no buts, no ifs. Express empathy. So this is where the don't be vague comes in, right? I'm sorry I flaked on your performance or our meeting or whatever it is. I know my insensitivity hurt your feelings. I should have let you know that I got caught up. I'm really sorry. It's interesting. I have a friend who I love so much, and we've been friends for probably like 15 years. And she's someone who I accept her light and her dark. She can flake. She comes, she lives in LA. She comes to New York. She's like, oh my God, I'm here. I want you to come meet the baby, blah, blah. And I was like, great, can't wait. It's going to be awesome. And I happened to be in the city. And then I said to her, she's like, all right, try to come in on Wednesday and I was getting my hair done on Thursday, whatever. The point is, I was like, let me know when you know your schedule on Wednesday and I'll work around it. And then the time came and went. I never heard from her. And because this has been a pattern, I just assumed she was overwhelmed. She's traveling by herself with a little kid. Like, I don't even take it personally. And because she's been this way in the past, I don't count on it. Like, I was like, oh, there's about a 30% chance I'll actually see her. But I love her anyway, and I don't care. Like, that's a boundary choice that I make for myself. But she reached out to me after the fact and left a long voice message and said, just totally acknowledged it. I'm really sorry. I didn't get back to you. That was insensitive. And because we both have been on a psychological, mental health journey for years and years, she was like, this is a part of my shadow that I'm working on. And I love you, but it's no justification. And I'm sorry. I get overwhelmed, and that's not your problem. So I really am sorry, Terri. It was so sweet, and I wasn't actually mad at her because, I did accept the way that she was. But anyway, I loved that she acknowledged it, and I said, thank you for acknowledging it. And, if you want me to, I'll hold you more accountable. I've just sort of accept that this is part of the rhythm of our relationship. And she's like, yes, please hold me more accountable. I was like, great, will do. So anyway, all right, so you can hear my geese. I'm sorry if you can. There's no way to make them be quiet. So I have animals here on Crackpot Farm. You could tell. All right, moving into expressing empathy, being specific, right? The third thing is to stick to your own side of the street. Meaning it's not then about what they did. It's so seductive. You can slip into, I'm sorry this happened. And if you hadn't done that, I wouldn't have done that, right? Or, and I know you understand because it's like the thing you did to me 6 months ago. You know what I mean? We really want to go tit for tat. Our ego gets bruised. When we do something wrong, we feel defensive and we want to but really work to stick to your own side of the street. We are not incriminating the other person. And the moment in an apology, we are not incriminating the other person. And then it's okay to share context without making an excuse. Because if you are familiar with all the work that I do around boundaries, I talk about the difference between sharing context and convincing someone of your right to have a boundary. In this case, sharing context of what happened is a way to have someone understand you more deeply without making an excuse. So there's an art to doing this, and you can do it. In saying, let's say, share contact without making an excuse. I know I've been stressed out about my big project at work, but that's no excuse for how I snapped at you. I'm really sorry I treated you like that. Right? We're being more honest. And I'm giving you a downloadable guide, and in that guide, you're going to, I'm giving you more language that you can actually use in an apology. Like what to do and what not to do sort of is going to be in there. So you can get that downloadable guide. Just go to terricole.com guide, and that is where it will be. All right, moving on to the last thought I have about this is, there's a saying out there. I didn't originate it, but I do really like it, which is the best apology is changed behavior. I think the only apology is changed behavior to a degree, right? Depending on what the situation is. So I think that if you know that you're a repeat offender around particular things, that if you're always late and always apologizing, that's a pattern that, first of all, makes apologies sort of null and void, right? Because my thought, my feeling is we really got to work to change the offending behavior. And listen, you guys, this goes for you, obviously, and your partner or your friends, people in your life. I'm just doing it in assuming that it's you. But for a lot of you, this is also going to be representative of other people in your life who can't apologize, who don't apologize, who are so defensive that you know you're never getting an apology. I think that it's really healthy to normalize apologizing. And I don't mean saying I'm sorry as some kind of like social KY jelly, not to be gross, but you know what I mean, as like a social lubricant, right? Because a lot of us misuse being sorry, and that's not a real apology either, right? Somebody bumps into you and you say, I'm sorry. That's just a reactive action. That's not real because you haven't thought about it. So this entire episode was about really the anatomy of an authentic apology and the importance. And I really think that defensiveness, you know, Harriet Lerner, one of my faves, says defensiveness is the arch enemy of listening. I think defensiveness also just kills what could be a potentially legitimate apology. Going in with a defensive stance, feeling like you have to justify. And the more you normalize apologizing in your relationships, as long as it's mutual. Vic and I have worked over the, decades that we've been together to be able to just normalize being sorry. Admitting promptly when we're wrong, because then nothing is such a big deal, right? Nothing is such a big deal. It's so easy to get polarized about right and wrong in a relationship. And you've got to really remember that it's not you against me. It's us against the problem. And sometimes that problem is one of your inability to apologize or own it. And that's a conversation that you can have. But it's also just something you can work on. You can change the dance. If you've been defensive in the past, you don't have to have like a State of the Union address about it. You can just shift your behavior and own it and say you're sorry. Make sense? So I really want to know what you think about apologizing. Do you struggle with it? Is it hard for you? What behavior was modeled for you? And I'll have some questions for you in your downloadable guide. And I'm going to give you some scripts, like sentence starters and scripts to help you. It'll sort of be like a fill in the blank thing. Be able to get there. Because this is a really important aspect of having a healthy relationship. And don't we all want healthy relationships? I think we do. So don't forget, you can get that guide at terricole.com/guide. I hope you have an amazing week. And as always, take care of you.